steals an empty plane, takes off, and then starts doing aerial maneuvers.
This happened just after 8 o'clock Seattle time. Within minutes, military jets were right behind him. Now, he flew the plane for about an hour and then crashed into a wooded area 40 miles from the airport.
We're learning more about the man who apparently stole that plane, by the way. The Pierce County Sheriff's Office says it was not a terrorist incident. We want to make that very clear. This was not a terrorist incident.
That's important to point out. And they did not identify this man, but they said that he's a 29-year-old man who they say was suicidal. Here's a closer look at what happened.
There's a ground stop. No one is departing right now. They're working out an issue close to our airspace.
With those words to airline pilots, all traffic was stopped at Washington State Seattle-Tacoma Airport, known as SeaTac, after what's being called an unauthorized takeoff of a Q400 turboprop plane from Horizon Air, owned by the Alaska Air Group. The company's COO said in a video statement that the aircraft was taken by a single Horizon Air employee and no passengers were on board. The Pierce County Sheriff said the man was a 29-year-old ground service agent. What happened next was a bizarre display in the skies above South Puget Sound. The agent was in touch with air traffic controllers and apparently performed stunts in the 76-seater plane. They tried to talk him down to a safe landing.
Congratulations, you did that. Now let's try to land that airplane safely and not hurt anybody on the ground.
All right. Now, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't want to. I was kind of hoping that was going to be it, you know?
Air National Guard jets were scrambled, and Washington's Governor Jay Inslee tweeted that fighter pilots flew alongside the aircraft and were ready to do whatever was needed to protect citizens. But in the end, the man flying the stolen plane crashed. Pictures from CNN affiliate KOMO showed flaming debris on nearby Ketron Island, the site of the crash.
The plane literally at that moment was flying right over our deck, and right behind it was F-15s. We'd never seen a plane that low over our deck before, and shortly thereafter, we saw a giant plume of black smoke out in the distance.
We've got more audio from inside the cockpit of that plane as well, where that man, who we understand was a ground service agent, talked about what he was trying to do.
I think I'm going to try to do a barrel roll. And if that goes good, now I'm just going to nose down and call it a night.
All right, joining us on the phone now is John Waldron. John, thank you for being with us. It's a late night for you there on the West Coast, early morning for us here on the East Coast. We'll keep it short. You looked up, saw those fighter jets escorting the stolen plane. At any point up to that point, did you realize or recognize that something was wrong, or was the presence of those jets the first sign for you?
Well, we have two large military bases within about 10 miles from where this all happened. So it's not uncommon to see, fighter aircraft up in the air. But to see them in the manner they were flying and at that location where they were at was a little bit bizarre. So I started to tape the aircraft, and then out of nowhere, the guy that was flying this Q400 just pulled the stick back and put this thing into a complete loop, and I honestly thought he was going to stall and hit the water. But, it was just very shocking to see, so I just kept taping, and I was completely unaware of what had actually happened at the airport. I had no idea the plane had been hijacked or what was going on. But it appeared that the two fighter jets were escorting him. They were alongside of him, then they would trail behind him. I don't know what they were trying to do at that time, obviously, because, like I said, I was unclear about what actually was going on. And then he headed down toward where he eventually crashed at. He actually pulled the nose back up again, and I thought he was going to stall again. And he made his way down towards Stillicum. I looked again. He was in a nosedive, and he went into the ground, straight in the ground. I saw a brief flash of flame and a big plume of smoke, and then the sound of the explosion. And I just had a bad feeling that it wasn't an exercise or anything. I just knew he had crashed at that point. So,
yeah, you said earlier that everyone was literally frozen in place. What conversations were you having? What were you thinking? What were you all standing there, in that moment?
I think we were all just completely in awe. First of all, over the type of flying this individual was doing, because it just, my first thought was either he doesn't have any flight experience in this aircraft and he's unfamiliar with the controls, or perhaps he is a stunt pilot and he's showing off or something. But it's very uncommon to see two military aircraft like that trailing behind. So we're all kind of sitting there with our jaws on the ground, like, what just happened? And this guy says, well, I think maybe a military exercise, but, over that area would have been very uncommon, because that's a civilian island, little beach cabins on it. It's populated very sparsely, but it's very bizarre for that area. No air shows were scheduled or anything that I was aware of. So to see this type of flying was way off what's normal.
All right, John Waldron, this amazing video that you shot really helps us understand what happened in those minutes over South Puget Sound. John Waldron, again, thanks so much for staying up late for us.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, John.
All right, joining us now to talk more about this, Mary Schiavo, CNN transportation analyst, former inspector general for the Department of Transportation, and Lieutenant Colonel Rick Francona, CNN military analyst. Good morning to both of you. And I'm going to start here. Before we get into the psychology of this ground service agent and all the particulars, the big headline question is, how in post 9/11 America does a ground service agent get access to a plane and have the possibility of doing something like this? Let me start with you, Mary.